Welcome back, horror fans, cinephiles, and Giallo enthusiasts. It's Tanner Leeser, your host for The King in Giallo. This is episode 3 of the Forgotten Giallo film series, 1964, Part 3. The final part to our exploration through 1964, and I've got 2 final gialli I'd like to highlight. As always, thanks in no small part to Troy Howard's book on Giallo cinema, So Deadly, So Perverse, 50 Years of Italian Giallo Films, Volume 1, 1963 to 1973. Like this video and subscribe to The King in Giallo, and do ring that notification bell so those lords of the algorithm may bestow their blessing upon me, and you continue to be presented with weekly Giallo content. On to the video. The 5th Giallo showcased for 1964 is A Game of Crime, directed by Romano Ferrara, billed as Roy Fremount, and written by Alessandro Contienza and Marcello Coschia. The film stars John Drew Barrymore as Paul, Luisa Rivelli as Anna, Lisa Gastoni as Elizabeth, Gian Claudio as Davide, Umberto Dorsi as Commissario Perotti, and Peter Dane as Dr. Bowen. The plot begins with Davide Lugani residing in his isolated villa with his wife Anna, his brother Carlo, who is disfigured and in a wheelchair, Paul, their secretary, and finally, Elizabeth, the nurse looking after Carlo. As things unfold, we learn that Anna pushed her husband into having Paul work for him as secretary, the implication that he and Anna had a love affair many years ago. Paul is accruing massive debts from his gambling problem, which he continues to not pay off, and this is discovered by Davide, which exacerbates his deteriorating heart condition. Davide has had enough of Paul and plans to report him to the police, but succumbs to his heart before he can follow through. Davide dies, and Anna inherits the estate on the condition that Davide's invalid brother continues to live on the premises, acting in the capacity of administrator of the estate. The police receive a note stating that Davide's death was foul play and he was murdered, and that more murders will follow. This is another black and white giallo from the 1960s, this one drawing heavy inspiration from Les Diaboliques 1955 by Henri-Georges Clouzot, to the point that if you are familiar with the inspiration, then you will likely not be surprised by this flick and its reveals. The writing duo would strike more success with another of their scripts, Let Sleeping Corpses Lie 1974, and separately the two would each pen their own giallo with greater success than this, A Quiet Place to Kill, 1970, written by Coschia, and The Iguana with the Tongue of Fire, 1971, written by Continenza. In this first foray, the duo make the mistake of putting more emphasis on melodrama and not enough on the thrills, generating a generally forgettable, lackluster, and predictable script. The film lacks any good pacing and is plagued by static scenes of dialogue which halt any spark of action. Director Romano Ferrara does not embody the genre and mishandles any of the suspense or horror sequences. The ending, showing the revealed killer fighting for their life against a ravenous onslaught of sewer rats, is apparently more exciting in this description than how it is sadly executed on film. The cinematography has a few good moments and the score is decent, but unfortunately there is an extended scene of music which, despite being well composed, is nothing more than padding to add to the running time. Something that ought to be left on the cutting room floor if it weren't one of the better moments in the film to behold for a giallo enthusiast. Director Romano Ferrara has a few directing credits, but nothing that attracted much attention. Perhaps the most being the sci-fi Planets Around Us, 1962, with Michel Lemoyne. The cast is rather lackluster as well. John Drew Barrymore dials it in here, much like his performance in Death on the Four-Poster, mentioned in my episode 2. Luisa Rivelli was also in Death on the Four-Poster, and here she does what she can with the character, which is not much, and her and Barrymore have little to no chemistry together. She would go on to appear in the spaghetti western The Big Gun Down, 1966, by Sergio Solima. Lisa Gastoni would appear in Lucio Fulci's The Maniacs, 1963, and Antonio Margheriti's War of the Planets, 1966. Her other gialli accolades would include Night of Violence, 1965, and L'Immoralita. Lisa is perhaps the best performer in the film. The police commissioner is played by Umberto De Orsi, and his performance makes his scenes more bearable than if they were perhaps played by another. He would be featured in a couple more gialli, Oasis of Fear, 1971, and the spoof I due gettoni e nove coda, e mezza ad Amsterdam, which is The Two Big Cats with Nine Tails and a Half in Amsterdam, 1972, ranking up there with another one of the worst titles I've ever heard. A Game of Crime does not appear to have a US home video release, but is available to stream online. On to the final film for 1964, Whatever Happened to Baby Toto, directed by Ottavio Alessi, Mario Castellani, though uncredited, and Paolo Heusch, also uncredited, and written by Ottavio Alessi and Giovanni Grimaldi. The actors are Toto, playing Baby Toto and Toto's father, Pietro De Vico as Pietro, Misha Auer as himself, Ivy Holzer as Inga, and Eddie Biagietti as Roman Vatro. This casting list makes me very curious. The plot unfolds as Baby Toto and Pietro, his brother, are brought up into a life of crime by their father, who is himself a pickpocket. In adulthood, the two become involved in any plot that can earn them any amount of money. When posing as baggage clerks at a train station, they fall into the possession of a dead body contained in a case. While attempting to dispose of the body, they are approached by Misha, whose home in the countryside is used as a front for a drug operation. Misha convinces the two of them to get rid of his wife, but things go awry after Toto eats a salad made of marijuana leaves. I thought the casting seemed bizarre. That plot is one of the strangest damn things I've ever read. Whatever Happened to Baby Toto is an Italian spoof of Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, and is perhaps one of the only Giallo spoofs employing gallows humor. The flick shares some similarities to both the source novel and the film adaptation. The movie shares a lot of ties to the previously reviewed Giallo movies on this channel. The villa is seen in Blood and Blacklace, and the use of marijuana to push the plot forward through means of it behaving like a strange psychedelic was toyed with in The Girl Who Knew Too Much, which was partially written by Sergio Corbucci, whose brother, Bruno Corbucci, had helped to write the story for this script. Toto goes on a killing spree and revels in his torturing of his brother, who has become relegated to a wheelchair now. One scene showing Toto feeding him a frog on a plate, a spoof of the same scene in Baby Jane, where the same was done but with the victim's pet canary. The film's star is Toto, a comedy actor known for lampooning popular films. Born in 1898 as Antonio Grifo Focas Flavio Angelo Ducas Comneno de Cortis di Bisanzio Gagliardi, but shortened his name to just Toto. Toto was a gifted comedian and had been entertaining crowds since his teens, and finally made the transition to film in the 1930s. His expressive and large eyes, along with his wildly animated body language, his ability to turn a phrase, and his genius understanding of physical comedy made him beloved by millions. The films he starred in often incorporated his name, such as Toto Tarzan, 1950, Toto the Third Man, 1951, Toto and the Women, 1952, and Toto in Color, 1953. Toto was known to spoof all genres and trends, and his efforts were often met with box office success. He started going blind in the 1950s, and by the time he was acting in this film, he was working mostly in the dark, but his performance hardly conveys this one bit. In the 1960s, he worked on a few films with Pier Paolo Pasolini, including Hawks and Sparrows, 1966, The Witches, 1967, and Capriccio all'Italiana, 1968. Despite this more serious transition into art house films, he remained to be seen as a popular figure. He died in 1967 of a heart attack. Alongside him is Russian character actor Misha Auer, who began on stage before moving to films. Misha appeared in the screwball comedy My Man Godfrey, 1936, which earned him an Academy nomination, but also appeared in more schlocky titles such as The Monster Walks, 1932, which had him stalking about in a really bad ape suit. He appeared in René Clair's adaptation of the Agatha Christie tale, And Then There Were None, 1945. Misha also died in 1967. The duo of Toto and Misha Auer are fantastic, and they feed off of each other's energy energy. Director Ottavio Alessi's contribution to the film is actually unknown. He was more of a screenwriter and occasionally an assistant director, but besides this film, his only other directing credit is the Giallo Top Sensation, 1969. Mario Castellani is said to have co-directed without being credited, but this too would be his only credit as directing in any capacity if those rumors are true. Castellani was known for his character work, seen in this film also. Likely, Paolo Heusch may have directed some of the film, himself having a sporadic career behind the camera, working on The Day the Sky Exploded, 1958, which was also massively directed by the film's cinematographer, Mario Bava, and also Werewolf in a Girl's Dormitory, 1961. It is unbelievable that with so many people who may or may not have directed some of the film, that it even turned out as entertaining and successful as it did. The film may be a vehicle to facilitate the performance of one of Italy's great comedic actors, but regardless, it is a true treat for audiences as it wonderfully parodies the new genre of the time and hits all the notes it needed to. Side note, Mario Bava would go on to use a portion of Armando Trovajoli's score from this film in his gothic masterpiece Kill Baby, Kill, 1966. Whatever happened to Baby Toto does not seem to have a US home video release, and I have not managed to find the movie streaming in its entirety, which is a shame. Maybe you will have better luck searching than I did at this time. I hope you learned something new. If you are interested in watching these movies, look them up online. If you do watch them or have already seen them, I invite you to leave your thoughts on them in the comments. Upcoming content on The King in Giallo will be the overview for Ernesto Gastaldi's 1965 Perota Giallo Libido, and the review and Gialli Tally video for Blood and Blacklace. Thank you very much for your continued support. This is Tanner Leeser for The King in Giallo, and if nothing else, I'll see you next time.
Mi voglio fare una pappata di quelle, che la vitamina C mi deve uscire dalle orecchie.